Okay, we'll get started. Good morning, everybody. This is our third and final webinar of the day. This one is on developing the Whiteshell Laboratories site restoration plan. First, I would like to acknowledge that Whiteshell Laboratories is situated on the traditional lands of Treaties 1 and 3 and near Treaty 5. This land is the home of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe Anishinaabe, and the national homeland of the Red River Métis. We recognize that many other Indigenous peoples across the region and Canada also consider this area their home. CNL is deeply grateful for the opportunity to work on these lands and waterways, which hold significant cultural and historical importance. We acknowledge that this site was established without consultation with the Indigenous peoples of this area. We recognize the ongoing impact of this, and we are committed to understanding and respecting the unique Indigenous history, rights, and title associated with this land. So before we kick off the presentation, there is simultaneous interpretation. If you'd like to listen in French, click the globe icon on the bottom right of your screen. Today's session is planned for about 45 minutes, 20 to 25 for the presentation, and the rest will be for questions. The Q&A icon, just click on it to type in your questions, and we'll take them up at the end. So we do record these sessions. We post to our YouTube channel afterwards, just to let you know. And if you have any technical issues, please email our wlcommunications@cnl.ca. We also look to evaluate our webinars more in depth. So following the webinar, you'll receive an email for a short 10-question survey. We'd really appreciate it if you took the time to share your thoughts. During today's webinar, you'll hear from Alan Caron, and he's the Director of End State Strategy at Whiteshell, and Gabrielle Gracie. She is a Senior Indigenous Engagement Officer. Alan will be providing us with an overview on developing the Whiteshell Laboratory Site Restoration Plan, and Gabrielle will be providing us with an update on public and Indigenous engagement. So without further ado, Alan, over to you.
All right, thanks, Mike. Yes, as mentioned, my name is Alan Caron, Director of End State Strategy here at the Whiteshell site. I've been at Whiteshell site for over 16 years and certainly enjoy living in the area and everything that the Pinawa area has to offer. And today I'll be speaking to you with respect to the ongoing development of the Whiteshell Laboratories Site Restoration Plan. So I'll take the lead to speak to you maybe a little bit more about the nuts and bolts of the plan itself. And Gabrielle Gracie a little bit later on our public and Indigenous engagement efforts with respect to the plan. Okay, you'll go to the next slide, please. So Whiteshell received its first decommissioning license in 2002, which was based on a 2001 environmental assessment. And then the decommissioning activities at the site began soon after. As we continued to bring the site towards the conclusion of the restoration activities, it's also a regulatory requirement where we needed to start develop the plan, the site restoration plan. So we started to do that in 2016. Actually, the original name of the plan was the Land Use and End State Plan, and it was rebranded earlier this year based on feedback that we've heard from our engagements. After drafting the plan and some iterations of review, in 2023, draft 5 of the plan was ready for public and Indigenous engagement. We've been engaging and incorporating feedback into the plan over the last few years. And earlier this year, April to be exact, draft 6 was ready. We will continue to engage and update the plan, and we anticipate to have revision 0 ready in the fall of 2026, which will support our next relicensing hearing a year later in the fall of 2027. All in all, we anticipate that the Whiteshell restoration project will be complete around 2035. A year or so ago, we had a webinar that rolled out the site restoration plan, or at the time it was called the Land Use End State Plan. I gave a high-level overview of the aspects of the document. In this presentation, I'll dive a little bit further into the plan and essentially describe our proposed plans for each part of the site. The plan itself is quite large, it's technical. However, the plan essentially breaks out the entire 4,400 hectare or 11,000 acre site into distinct areas called decision units. The plan categorizes the site into 7 distinct areas and are based on the unique activities that took place there while the site was an active laboratory. Those activities then would have common legacies that would drive a common end state for that parcel of land. For example, the main campus was where the main laboratory activities took place and where most of the restoration is currently taking place. The proposed end state for this area aligns with a common accepted industrial remediation approach. Contrast that with our sanitary lagoon, for example, that will undergo a much different restoration process and a different proposed end state. So think of it like a house where each room has a unique set of activities in it, like a bedroom, kitchen, bathroom, etc. Remodeling of each room would need to be done in different ways. So kind of think of it that way is what we're doing for the site. So how we kind of separate it all out. Next slide, please. Each decision unit end state will be to one of 4 categories, each with its own set of limitations on what can be done after we're post remediation. On one end of the spectrum, we have unrestricted use category, where essentially the land is already or will be remediated to the cleanest category possible. In our case, over 90% of the land will be remediated to this category. On the other end of the spectrum, we have the restricted access category. Here, CNL is proposing that there's going to be a couple very small footprints of the areas where there will need to be access restrictions based on proposed legacies being present at the end of the restoration. These restricted areas would also be subject to enhanced environmental monitoring to ensure safety. These are industry standard categories and are used for industrial environmental remediation projects across Canada. So if you see, there are 4 different ones: unrestricted, recreational, industrial use, and restricted. And there is a bit of a description of what activities that can be done on those areas after post remediation. Okay, next slide, please. Perfect. So now we'll start to briefly describe each decision unit and how we are proposing to restore that envelope of land. The first one I'd like to describe is the main campus itself, and it is depicted in the greenish area right in the center of the picture. This is where the main laboratory activities took place over the operation of the site. This area excludes the proposed WR1 project I'll talk about shortly, and the WR1 project has the little red rectangle right in the center of it. But for the main campus, we're proposing to remediate this to what's called industrial end state. And that means that in our case, we are proposing that all the above grade infrastructure, like the buildings, be safely removed, as well as anything within the first 1.5 meters of the surface. What could remain afterwards could include buried de-energized services like electrical lines that have been there since the 60s, isolated water and sewer pipes, buried building piles, basement floor slabs, etc. Anything that we're proposing to leave would be proven to be safe through a safety analysis process. And likely additional steps like capping lines would likely need to be done to ensure that we're leaving it in a safe state. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah. And if it was as easy as Photoshop to remediate the Whiteshell site, but what you see here is a before and after picture. So the before picture on the left after picture on the right of what CNL envisions as an end state for the campus. As you can see, the surface buildings have been removed, but what you can't see are the proposed below ground structures that I mentioned. As you can see, there will all be also some roads left in place to support future activities and environmental monitoring. And future use of this area, could support any kind of industrial use, and it'd be excellent for any kind of future economic interests. Okay, next slide. The decision unit, excuse me, for the WR1 reactor is the small postage stamp area that represents the proposed Whiteshell Reactor 1 disposal facility. I believe we've had a few webinars on WR1, and there's an ongoing public and Indigenous engagement component of that. It's going through its own environmental assessment process. But it is located on the main campus and depicted by the red rectangle right in the center of it. This project, if approved, the proposed end state would be a restricted area within the industrial land use area I just talked about for the main campus. The proposed decommissioning strategy for WR1 includes in situ grouting of the reactor and the surrounding building envelope and below surface infrastructure. An engineered cap and cover would also then be constructed at the surface, and then more likely to prevent any kind of intrusion. A fence would also be set up as well. For more information on the WR1 environmental impact statement, there are going to be some details provided as well, so you can go have a look at it there. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the rendering of the proposed restoration end state for WR1, and what the engineered mound and fence in the main campus area would look like. Of course, this is what the surface would look like. Below grade would be the grouted grout filled building underneath. But this is what we're proposing as an end state currently for WR1. Again, just a distinct little part of the main campus area. Okay, next slide, please. Okay. The next decision unit is for the river sediments, and it's not shown on any of our maps. It's legacy. They're associated with legacy river sediments that are located off-site from the Whiteshell site. These sediments were a result from historic operational issues in the 1970s when the WR1 reactor was in operation. These issues released organic coolant to the Winnipeg River that remains there to this day. They're there in a safe state, and the release has been studied extensively over the years. And based on those studies, there's no further remediation required at this time. The sediments related to this, they've been monitored for many years, and they will continue to be monitored and ensure that it remains in a safe state. Next slide, please. This next area is for the sanitary sewage lagoons that are located directly north of the main campus. If you look right at the top of the picture there, with the orange rectangle, that's where they are. These lagoons operated exactly like a municipal sewage lagoon that any town would and city would have, and not designed to receive any kind of radiological materials. CNL, the lagoons are still in operation, receiving sewage waste from our buildings. However, we are proposing to restore this area to a recreational restoration end state. The sediments, once operation is ceased, we would remediate the sediments that would accumulate in any like any lagoon. and then the area be turned over to a wetland to support further wildlife and plant life. As you can see, oh, next slide, please. So if you can see from this rendering, the lagoons would look much like they do today. However, it is a little bit greener. But again, they will not be operational and will not receive any sewage waste. The proposed restoration end state under the recreational category, activities like hiking, skiing, bird watching, would be something appropriate for this area. And then also as part of any of the revegetation efforts, we do engage with the local Indigenous nations on what would be appropriate as well. Next slide, please. Okay, the landfill area would be the next area I'd like to describe to you. It is the site of our non-radioactive landfill, and it's located a couple kilometers away from the main campus. Also included in this area is a legacy firing range that was used to train our security forces. There was a burn pit that was used to burn things like wood. It's no longer being used as a burn pit. We dispose of our wood in a more conventional ways now. There's an asbestos disposal site that's adjacent to the landfill. It's also been not receiving any asbestos waste there anymore. So all of these are legacy areas. So for this area, we would be, for the landfill site, we'd be remediating in accordance to the Government of Manitoba standard for the closure of landfills. The footprint of the landfill would be a restricted area, so it would be fenced off, some access controls there. It would be properly capped to proper standards. So that's the red rectangle. The orange rectangle is a also industrial accepted practice of putting in a 400-meter buffer around there, and that area will be designated as a recreational land use area. Go to the next slide, please. Here's our rendering. The picture on the left shows the landfill area. So it's kind of close to the center of the picture, with the surrounding other surrounding areas I did describe. The after picture we propose would look a lot like on the right. What is missing out there is the possible fencing and the cap that would demarc the restricted area associated with the landfill. Also, we would have roads remaining out here to support any kind of environmental monitoring that would take place out there as well. The next area, Decision Unit A6, I'd like to describe to you is essentially the infrastructure associated with the rest of the 4,400 hectares or 11,000 acre site. So as of right now, I haven't mentioned the waste management area yet, but that's next. But I have focused on the colored rectangle areas of the picture. This decision unit is everything else that's demarked with the black lines that you see close to the edges of the picture. That's our entire campus, and they even go across to the west side of the Winnipeg River as well. This includes, so within this footprint, infrastructure. There's like boreholes that were drilled there over the years to perform certain types of monitoring over the course of the operation of the site. There's various areas where some experiments took place as well. And then some environmental studies and hydroelectric lines that would no longer be needed, and some redundant roads that are no longer needed. So kind of a catch-all. for the rest of the balance of the site. The proposed remediation end state for this would be to return them to the unrestricted category. So that would be part of the 93%. So actually everything that you see within the black line that's not in a colored spot, that's like 93% of our footprint that would be unrestricted, and this would be part of it. And so it's really difficult to show what the site would look like after, other than it'll look like natural unrestricted land. Next slide, please. Okay, the next one is our waste management area, and it's really the final area I'd like to describe with you today. It's located a couple kilometers away from the site. It was constructed and operated to store radioactive waste that resulted from the operations and decommissioning of the Whiteshell site. Current plans have most of the waste being removed and shipped for safe storage and disposal at another CNL site, likely Chalk River. Though there are options being discussed with respect to the low-level waste trenches, the current approved path for the low-level waste trenches is for that low-level waste to be left in place, although we are in discussions for other options for what that waste. But currently, we're proposing to leave it in place as approved from our environmental assessment 2002. If this waste was to be safely left in place, the waste management area would have a restricted land use designation, as depicted with the red rectangle, along with, just like with our landfill, the surrounding 400-meter buffer zone that would be, as before, designated as a recreational area. But once again, we are engaging on different options with respect to low-level waste trenches. So that may change as an outcome of those engagements. Next slide, please. So this slide is a rendering of what the waste management area, what we're proposing it to look like if the low-level waste would be safely left in place. So essentially all the structures that you see on the left side that currently safely store waste would be remediated, the ground remediated, and the only proposed legacy to be left in place would be the low-level waste trenches. And I do believe we had a presentation a few months ago on the low-level waste trenches. So for more information, you can go have a look at that. But essentially, you can see it would be the restricted area would be surrounded through a fencing. There would be required engineered barriers put in place to ensure that the low-level waste is in a safe state. And there would be also enhanced environmental monitoring out there as well for the next 100+ years. So I'll now turn over the presentation to Gabrielle Gracie to take us through the public indigenous engagement aspects of the site restoration plan.
Okay, thanks, Alan. So another significant aspect involved in the development of the site restoration plan is the incorporation of feedback from Indigenous nations and the public. Since 2023, CNL has been engaging with Indigenous peoples on the Whiteshell Laboratories site restoration plan. We've been actively seeking feedback from Indigenous nations, striving to incorporate traditional knowledge and Indigenous perspectives into the plan. CNL has also been actively engaging the public, which has been an ongoing component of the development of the site restoration plan. CNL continues to engage with local communities, including young people, different levels of government, and industry representatives regarding Whiteshell's operations, especially those related to the site restoration plan. Engagement on the site restoration plan has also included open discussion forums at CNL's regional leadership gatherings. Held in 2023 and again in 2024, with our next one in 2025 coming up in November, it brings together leaders from all around the site to support open dialogue on the site's restoration plan, and more specifically, how we can include public and Indigenous feedback into the plan. Next slide, please. So CNO's public and Indigenous engagement on the site restoration plan has resulted in a lot of feedback, which is a really good thing, a lot of which CNO has been taking into consideration and is incorporating into the plan. So key feedback themes include the fact that CNO didn't engage early enough in the process, with our first publication of the draft being draft 5. We also heard that many aspects of the plan do not have enough or any Indigenous perspectives, and that CNL needs to engage nations to incorporate traditional Indigenous knowledge into the plan. We also know that the document itself is quite large, technical, and difficult to understand, and that was a really key piece of feedback that we received in a lot of our engagements. And we also know and learned that the term land use end state was confusing and ultimately misleading. Since draft 5 of the site restoration plan has been published, we've been working to include feedback received by the nations and the public. A lot of the work that we've done has been in community engagement sessions, site tours focused on the site restoration plan, specifically the decision units. But we've been able to, and we continue to engage the public and Indigenous nations. And we've developed the site restoration plan executive summary, which is a summary document that summarizes the key aspects of the site restoration plan in a non-technical way, very similar to the layout of today's webinar, focusing on the decision units. And the incorporation of feedback also includes the removal of the term land use and end state, and change the title of the document. As Al said earlier, we've changed it to the site restoration plan, away from the term land use and end state. Next slide, please. I'll pass it over to Al.
Oh, great. Thanks, Gabrielle. So I'll take us home here. So just a little bit of an update on the progress of well, kind of the plan and the site itself. But so far, so as we continue on with the restoration mission of the Whiteshell site, we've taken down over 45 buildings at the site. It's a large number, and they all range in size according to what they were used for in the past. We've also safely transported about 6,700 cubic meters of waste to our Chalk River site in Ontario. And we also continue to collect thousands of samples every year through our extensive environmental monitoring program. We also do very rigorous sorting and segregation of our waste on site, so we minimize the amount of waste we generate. We recycle as much as we can. When we're complete with the restoration mission, CNL proposes that over 93% of the 11,000 acre site, or 4,400 hectare site, will be to unrestricted use, and less than 0.5% requiring access restrictions or under the restricted use. CNL will also continue with a monitoring program well after the restoration is complete to ensure continued safety. Next slide, please. CNL also has waste estimates that we're always updating of what will be generated or what we estimate to be generated as we continue with the restoration of the site. This includes the three levels of radioactive waste and non-radioactive waste, like building debris, etc. And as mentioned, we are continuing to up these estimates on a consistent basis. So where is this waste going? All non-radioactive waste will be safely sorted, segregated, and disposed of using approved licensed facilities. There is some non-radioactive waste that CNL is proposing to leave in a safe state on site, which is the legacy landfill that I described earlier. There's also some radioactive waste that CNL is proposing to safely dispose of at the Whiteshell site, and that being associated with the WR1 project and the low-level waste trenches. which are both going through their own engagement processes. The rest of the radioactive waste will be safely shipped to our Chalk River site for safe storage and eventual disposal. So to wrap up the discussion, this is our timeline, current timeline we have for the development of the site restoration plan. We update the plan as we continue to engage with the public and Indigenous nations. We plan on submitting a revision to support our next license hearing. That would be in the fall of 2027. But it won't end there. We will continue to be a living document as we continue to engage and as the restoration of the Whiteshell site progresses. All right, back to you, Mike. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, thank you guys. Great presentation. Lots of information there, and we will get to some questions. For the landfill remediation, would you be restoring the wetland areas or removing them entirely?
As part of that of the restoration process, I mean, there would certainly be the wetland areas around would remain in a safe state. Part of the environmental assessment would be taking characterization of those wetlands to ensure that there is no impact to them. If there is, then we will do the appropriate restoration. So it's not just the landfill; it's the surrounding impact of to all those surrounding areas as well.
Okay, thank you. How did you establish the areas of impacted and non-impacted locations on site, the areas in the colored boxes?
So as part of the comprehensive study report in 2002, to feed into that, there was a very extensive site characterization program. It started in the late 90s to confirm that what was impacted and non-impacted. So back then it was called affected lands and non-affected lands, and back then so it was confirmed that there was no impact there. So that'd be part of that 93% that we will continue to restore to that standard as well. So back in the late 90s, it was a large program to confirm all that stuff.
Okay, thank you. What type of waste was sent to Chalk River, and will more be sent?
So part of these 6,700 cubic meters of waste sent, the vast majority of it, like in the high 90%, was low level waste associated with the decommissioning activities, and also waste that was already packaged at the waste management area. So that very high 90s. There was very little bit of would be considered intermediate level waste, but very little of that was sent as well. All safely done, but mostly, say, almost 100% low level waste.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so the webinar before this, Sean Gamley touched on waste coming from Whiteshell. So if you missed that, we will be posting that webinar to YouTube in a week or so once we get everything in order and posted. So that'd be good to watch if you haven't seen that one. Next question here. Can we please have a link to the Whiteshell Laboratories Restoration Plan Executive Summary?
I can take that one. So absolutely, the Whiteshell Laboratory Site Restoration Plan executive summary is still being developed based on public and Indigenous feedback into the plain language report. So as soon as that is finalized, we will post it publicly on our site. And if you send us an email, we can send it to you directly as well.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. When is a decision for the disposal of the waste management area trenches anticipated?
So we are in a again ongoing engagement on that. We essentially have three options for it. The current approved plan, according to the 2002 comprehensive study report, is in situ disposal with the required engineered barriers. We've taken a lot of feedback over the last, I guess, almost year and a half that we've been engaging on the low-level waste trenches. We would like to come up with a continued engagement and keep listening, and would like to have a decision feed into the next licensing hearing. So that would be fall of 2027.
Mike, you're on mute.
I am. I was good until then. Does the waste management area disposal area include residual contamination? Will all concrete structures, including footings, be removed?
The plan is for the concrete structures to be removed. So we do have low-level waste above ground, low-level waste bunkers. We also have below grade intermediate level waste bunkers and standpipes. The current plan would be to remediate those areas as well, and as well as the adjacent concrete canister storage facility. So yes, so the trenches is really the only one in question.
Okay, thank you. The end date is currently noted as 2035. Is that still the target, or is the date likely to change?
That's our current projection. Schedules. Our schedule is under constant review, and based on significant things like again current. I'll use trenches as an example. Current is in situ disposal, but if we have to do another path for the end state of the trenches, it may have an impact on it, just as WR1 and other CNL projects that are not at Whiteshell may also have an impact on our schedule as well. So we do have both internal and external factors that we need to consider on our schedule.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned a report that came out in 2000. This is before, you said you've been around 16 years, so before your time. I don't know if you can answer this, but it's how was characterization carried out for the CSR of 2000?
Yeah, we'd have to get back on
Okay.
that one. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. See if there are a couple coming in. They're a bit out of scope, so won't get to those. There any more coming in? We'll wait a minute or two. Okay, well, we wait a minute or two to see if any more are coming in. I'll do kind of my wrap up. So this is the third webinar, and we're glad to be back. But we are going to ask you to please fill out the survey that we send out. So we do read them, and it helps us to let us know how we're doing and what type of topics you want to hear, so we can continue to get good numbers for these bi-monthly webinars. So please, we'll send that out once we're done today. And we do send out the links and any of the questions that we didn't get to, that kind of needed to go back to different team members to answer. So we'll send those out. And remember that you could always reach out to us at any time and ask us questions. For Whiteshell, it's wlcommunications@cnl.ca. And for the other sites, it's ermstakeholder@cnl.ca. Okay. Okay, yeah, we'll wrap up. So thank you, Alan. Thank you, Gabrielle, for today's presentation. Really appreciate it. And thanks everybody for tuning in. Great job, and we will see you next time. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.